The courtroom buzzed with quiet murmurs as Michael Jordan entered alone. Reporters whispered to each other while lawyers from the opposing side exchanged knowing glances. The bailiff announced the judge's arrival, and everyone stood. Judge Harrison Mitchell took his seat and adjusted his glasses as he looked over the case file. His eyes landed on Jordan sitting by himself at the defense table. The judge leaned forward with an amused expression. "Mr. Jordan, I see you're representing yourself today in this $25 million lawsuit," he said, barely hiding his smirk. The room fell silent, waiting for Jordan's response. Michael stood up slowly, his 6'6" frame towering even while standing still. "That's correct, Your Honor," he replied in his deep, steady voice. The judge chuckled and shook his head. "You do realize this is a complex federal trademark case, not a basketball game?" The opposing lawyers snickered quietly at their table. Jordan didn't flinch. "I'm aware of the nature of the case, Your Honor," he said calmly. Judge Mitchell sighed dramatically. "Mr. Jordan, I must advise you that this is highly unorthodox. The plaintiff has a team of experienced attorneys while you have yourself." The courtroom erupted in quiet laughter. Michael waited for it to die down before responding. "I understand the risks, Your Honor. I'm prepared to proceed." The judge leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying the spectacle. "Well then, let the record show the defendant has chosen to represent himself against legal advice." He banged his gavel. "We'll begin opening statements after lunch." As people filed out of the courtroom, reporters rushed to get comments. "Mr. Jordan, why are you doing this?" one shouted. Michael simply walked past them without a word. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed as he made his way to a waiting car. Inside the vehicle, Jordan finally allowed himself to exhale deeply. He looked at his reflection in the window and remembered how this all started 3 months ago. That day when the lawsuit arrived at his office, threatening everything he'd built after basketball. His lawyers had urged him to settle, warning him the case could ruin his reputation. But Michael Jordan never backed down from a challenge. That night, he sat alone in his home office, surrounded by law books. His fingers traced the embossed letters on one cover. Intellectual property law. He opened it to the first page and began reading just like he used to study game film late at night during his playing days. The clock struck 3 a.m. when he finally looked up, his eyes tired but determined. This would be his most difficult opponent yet. The United States legal system. But if there was one thing Michael Jordan knew how to do, it was prepare. Over the next weeks, he worked tirelessly, often studying 18 hours a day. He hired a retired judge to tutor him secretly. They met in a small library downtown where no one would recognize him. "You need to understand precedent," the old judge explained. "Cases are decided based on past rulings." Jordan took furious notes, asking sharp questions. At night, he reviewed documents from the lawsuit, searching for weaknesses. His investigators dug into the plaintiff's background, uncovering suspicious patterns. Piece by piece, Michael built his defense with the same precision he used to develop his fadeaway jumper. The morning of the trial, he dressed carefully in his navy suit, adjusting his tie in the mirror. His reflection stared back. Not the basketball legend the world knew, but a determined student of the law ready for his toughest game yet. The car pulled up to the courthouse as Michael Jordan reviewed his notes one final time. He closed the folder and stepped out into the bright morning sun, immediately surrounded by shouting reporters. "Mr. Jordan, do you really think you can win this case without lawyers?" one called out. Michael ignored the questions and walked straight to the crowd with the same focused expression he used to wear entering NBA arenas. Inside the courtroom, the opposing legal team was already seated, 3 expensive suits whispering confidently to each other. Their client, Marcus Shelton, CEO of Wilson Foods, smirked when he saw Jordan arrive alone. The bailiff announced the judge's entrance, and everyone rose. Judge Mitchell took his seat and looked directly at Jordan. "Mr. Jordan, before we begin, I feel obligated to ask once more, are you absolutely certain you wish to proceed without counsel?" Michael stood calmly. "I am, Your Honor." The judge sighed. "Very well, Mr. Blackwell, you may begin your opening statement." The lead attorney for Wilson Foods stood up, adjusting his $1,000 suit. "Thank you, Your Honor." Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is a simple case of theft. He paced dramatically in front of the jury box. Michael Jordan stole our client's restaurant designs, menus, and business plans to create his Flight 23 chain. We have documents, emails, and witnesses that will prove this beyond any doubt. Jordan watched him passively as Blackwell continued his polished presentation. The attorney showed photos comparing the restaurant's interiors side by side. Notice the identical layout, the same kitchen design, even matching color schemes, he said triumphantly. When Blackwell finished, the judge turned to Jordan. Mr. Jordan, your opening statement? The courtroom tensed as Michael stood up. He walked slowly to the jury box, making eye contact with each member before speaking. What Mr. Blackwell just showed you looks convincing, he began, his voice steady. But looks can be deceiving. He paused dramatically. What we will prove is that Wilson Foods fabricated evidence to frame me. Their documents are fake. Their witnesses are lying. And their entire case is built on one thing, greed. The jury leaned forward. You see, Flight 23 was my dream long before Wilson Foods ever imagined their air grill chain. I have the original sketches to prove it. Jordan held up a thick folder. And as for their so-called evidence, he smiled slightly. Let's just say they forgot one important detail. The truth always comes out. The judge raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by Jordan's confident delivery. Even Blackwell looked unsettled. We'll begin with the plaintiff's first witness, Judge Mitchell said, recovering his composure. The trial was officially underway, and Michael Jordan was just getting started. The first witness for Wilson Foods took the stand, Jennifer Martinez, their former director of operations. She adjusted her glasses nervously as the plaintiff's attorney began questioning her. Ms. Martinez, can you describe proprietary information you believe was stolen? She cleared her throat. Yes, our restaurant layout designs, menu concepts, and expansion plans were all taken. The attorney showed her documents marked confidential. Are these your company's original plans? Martinez nodded. Yes, and these exact designs appear in Flight 23 locations. The jury murmured. When it was Jordan's turn to cross-examine, he approached slowly with a folder. Ms. Martinez, these documents you identified, when were they created? She hesitated. 2018. Jordan opened his folder. This is a copyright filing from my company dated 2016. He showed the court a document with his signature and an earlier date. How could I steal designs in 2018 that I created in 2016? Martinez shifted in her seat. I don't know. Jordan continued calmly. Isn't it true you were fired from Wilson Foods for sharing confidential information? The witness turned pale. That allegation was never proven. Jordan handed her a termination letter. This is otherwise. The courtroom erupted. Judge Mitchell banged his gavel. Order. Mr. Jordan, where did you obtain this document? Michael didn't blink. Public records request, Your Honor. The judge examined it closely before overruling the plaintiff's objection. As Martinez stepped down, the jury looked at her differently. The once confident Wilson Foods legal team huddled nervously. Jordan returned to his seat, his expression unreadable. He had drawn first blood. The next witness was Thomas Chun, Wilson Foods CFO. He testified about financial damages. Flight 23's expansion caused us to lose $40 million, he claimed, showing charts. When Jordan stood cross-examined, he carried a thick stack of papers. Mr. Chun, you claim we stole your expansion strategy. When did Wilson Foods' first plan open in Miami? Chun consulted notes. Early 2019. Jordan handed him a document. This is my lease agreement from Miami dated 2017. The CFO's hands shook as he read it. Jordan then displayed architectural blueprints. These Flight 23 kitchen designs were filed with Charlotte Building Department in 2015. Your original concept came later, correct? Chin swallowed hard. Apparently so. Jordan saved his best for last. He played a recording of a Wilson Foods executive saying, "We need to crush Flight 23 by any means necessary." The jury gasped. Judge Mitchell demanded silence but looked troubled. During recess, Reporters swarmed Jordan. "How did you get that recording?" they shouted. Michael simply said, "Thorough preparation," before walking away. Meanwhile, Marcus Shelton was seen yelling at his lawyers in the hallway. The confident CEO who had laughed at Jordan now looked genuinely worried. His attorneys scrambled to adjust their strategy, realizing their star witnesses were crumbling under Jordan's methodical cross-examination. The trial's third day began with Wilson Foods IT director David Morrison testifying about a supposed computer hack. "Our servers were breached from an IP address in Charlotte, where Flight 23 is headquartered," he stated confidently. The plaintiff's attorney displayed complex technical diagrams to the jury. When Jordan rose to cross-examine, he carried a laptop. "Mr. Morrison, you claim this hack occurred at 2:17 a.m.? The witness nodded. Jordan opened his laptop. "This is security footage from my office that night." The video showed an empty, dark office at the exact time of the alleged hack. Morrison blinked rapidly. It must have been done remotely." Jordan then showed internet provider records. "There was a city-wide outage that night. No one could have accessed our systems." The jury looked astonished. Jordan saved his final blow for last. The IP address was actually traced to Prague, where Wilson Foods outsources IT work, correct? Morrison turned to his lawyers in panic. Before they could object, Jordan displayed an email from Wilson Foods' Prague contractor discussing testing server access. The courtroom exploded in noise. Judge Mitchell called for an immediate recess. As everyone filed out, reporters rushed to publish the shocking revelation. Jordan gathered his papers calmly while across the room, Marcus Shelton's face turned beet red as he screamed at his legal team. The case was turning completely in Jordan's favor, and everyone could see it. The courtroom buzzed with tension as proceedings resumed after recess. Judge Mitchell adjusted his glasses and addressed Jordan directly. "Mr. Jordan, before we continue, the court wishes to clarify your last piece of evidence." Michael stood smoothly, his posture relaxed yet commanding. "Your Honor, the email from Prague proves Wilson Foods had both motive and means to fabricate this hacking claim." The judge studied the document carefully before nodding. "Continue your cross-examination." Jordan turned back to the flustered IT director. "Mr. Morrison, isn't it true your company paid the Prague firm extra for special server access last April?" Morrison wiped his forehead. I wasn't involved in those decisions." Jordan raised an eyebrow. "But you signed the payment approval forms, didn't you?" He produced another document showing Morrison's signature. The witness looked desperately toward Wilson Foods' lawyers, who suddenly appeared very interested in their legal pads. Jordan pressed his advantage. "This hacking was staged to frame my company, wasn't it?" Before Morrison could answer, the plaintiff's lead attorney jumped up. "Objection!" Counsel was badgering the witness. Judge Mitchell sighed. "Sustained. Mr. Jordan, rephrase." Michael nodded politely. "No further questions, Your Honor." As Morrison hurried from the stand, the jury whispered among themselves. The once confident case against Jordan was unraveling fast. The prosecution called their star witness next, Marcus Shelton himself. The CEO strode to the stand with practiced confidence, flashing a smile at the jury. His attorney began gently. "Mr. Shelton, when did you first suspect intellectual property theft?" Shelton sighed dramatically. "When Flight 23 opened locations identical to our planned expansions." He described noticing striking similarities in designs and menus. When Jordan rose for cross-examination, the courtroom tensed. Michael approached slowly, holding a single sheet of paper. "Mr. Shelton, your company's annual report mentions struggling restaurants, correct?" Shelton shifted in his seat. "Every chain has challenges." Jordan continued calmly. "In fact, your Air Grill locations were failing before Flight 23 even existed, weren't they?" He showed financial reports showing years of losses. Shelton's smile faded. "We were restructuring." Jordan then produced a shocking document, an internal Wilson Foods memo titled Operation Takeover, discussing plans to eliminate Flight 23 through litigation. Shelton's face turned purple. "That's taken out of context." Jordan didn't blink. "The context seems quite clear. He played a recording of Shelton telling executives, "We'll bury Jordan in legal fees until he surrenders." The jury gasped. Judge Mitchell had to bang his gavel repeatedly to restore order. Chaos erupted after the damning recording played. Shelton's lawyers demanded a private conference with the judge. When proceedings resumed, Judge Mitchell looked grave. "Mr. Shelton, I remind you that you're under oath." Jordan stood calmly waiting to continue his cross-examination. "Mr. Shelton," he began, "you claim Flight 23 stole your signature cocktail menu, yet your company didn't serve alcohol until 2018, correct?" Shelton hesitated. "I'd have to check." Jordan didn't wait. "I have your liquor license applications here." He handed them to the clerk. Meanwhile, Flight 23 bars have been operating since 2015. The CEO began sweating visibly. Jordan then delivered his masterstroke, a sworn affidavit from a former Wilson Foods architect admitting they copied elements from Flight 23, not vice versa. Shelton exploded. "He's lying. That traitor was fired for incompetence." The outburst shocked the courtroom into silence. Judge Mitchell's voice turned icy. "Mr. Shelton, control yourself." Jordan remained perfectly composed. No further questions. As Shelton stormed off the stand, reporters scrambled to file updates. The courtroom buzzed with realization Michael Jordan wasn't just defending himself. He was systematically dismantling Wilson Foods' entire case. During the recess, even the bailiffs whispered about the stunning turnaround. Jordan's quiet confidence stood in stark contrast to Shelton's unraveling temper. The basketball legend turned legal novice was schooling seasoned attorneys at their own game. The courtroom remained tense as Judge Mitchell called for order after the lunch recess. The prosecution looked visibly shaken as they called their next witness, a paid industry consultant named Dr. Alan Whitmore. The gray-haired expert adjusted his glasses and spoke in measured tones about market confusion between the two restaurant chains. When Jordan stood for cross-examination, he carried a slim black binder. "Dr. Whitmore," he began, "you've testified in 7 cases for Wilson Foods, correct?" The expert nodded. "I've been retained multiple times, yes." Jordan opened his binder. "And you're being paid $400 per hour for your testimony today?" Whitmore shifted uncomfortably. "That's standard for expert witnesses." Jordan then displayed a chart. "In these previous cases, you always testified for plaintiff, never the defense?" The expert's fingers tapped the stand. "That's coincidental." Jordan's voice remained calm, but sharpened slightly. "Isn't it true your reports always support whoever pays you?" The prosecution objected loudly, but the damage was done. Jordan had exposed the witness's bias without raising his voice. As Whitmore left the stand, even the jury foreman shook his head slightly. The prosecution's case continued to crumble when their documents expert took the stand. Elizabeth Cho testified about identical formatting between the company's manuals. Jordan approached with his laptop. "Ms. Cho, you analyze these documents digitally?" She nodded confidently, using industry-standard forensic tools. Jordan projected a metadata analysis on the courtroom screens. "This shows the Wilson Foods documents were created last year, but backdated, doesn't it?" Cho's eyes widened at the technical display. "The timestamps appear inconsistent," she conceded. Jordan pressed further. "And this watermark pattern proves they were printed on Wilson Foods' new office copiers, not their 2018 models?" Cho's professional demeanor faltered. "I would need to verify that." The jury leaned forward as Jordan methodically dismantled what remained of the paper trail against him. Even Judge Mitchell removed his glasses to study the evidence more closely. By the time Jordan returned to his seat, the prosecution table looked like a defeated basketball team in the fourth quarter, exhausted and outmaneuvered. With their case collapsing, the prosecution made a desperate move. They recalled Marcus Shelton to the stand. The CEO's earlier confidence had been replaced by visible tension. His attorney tried damage control. "Mr. Shelton, would your company ever fabricate evidence?" Shelton straightened his tie. "Absolutely not. We're an ethical corporation." Jordan stood slowly for cross-examination, this time holding a single envelope. "Mr. Shelton, do you recognize this FedEx tracking number?" Shelton squinted at the document. It looks familiar. Jordan's voice remained deadly calm. It's the shipment receipt for documents you sent to Prague the day before the alleged hack. The color drained from Shelton's face. Jordan continued. And this email from your IT director warns you the metadata would be problematic for your case? Shelton's mouth opened, but no words came out. The courtroom erupted. Judge Mitchell's gavel pounded as he called for order. But the truth was now undeniable. Wilson Foods had orchestrated the entire scheme. Jordan returned to his table without another word. His case made. The jury didn't need to consult. Their faces showed they'd reached their verdict. That evening, Jordan sat alone in his hotel suite, surrounded by documents. His phone buzzed constantly. Congratulations from friends, interview requests, even a message from the NBA commissioner. He ignored them all, focused instead on preparing his closing argument. The television played muted news coverage showing legal experts analyzing his courtroom performance. Jordan didn't just win, he exposed an entire corporate conspiracy, one commentator gushed. At precisely 8 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Jordan's private investigator entered with a sealed envelope. "You were right," the man said quietly. "We found the bank transfers." Jordan examined the documents, wire receipts showing Shelton had paid off witnesses. He nodded grimly. "This ends tomorrow." As the investigator left, Jordan returned to his legal pad, carefully scripting every word he would say to the jury. The city lights twinkled outside his window. Unaware of the final blow he was about to deliver in what had become the most important game of his life. The next morning, the courtroom was packed to capacity. Spectators lined the walls as Jordan took his place at the defense table. Judge Mitchell entered with unusual solemnity. Before closing arguments, he announced, "The court has received new evidence." The prosecution team visibly stiffened. The judge continued, "These documents suggest witness tampering. Mr. Jordan, did you obtain these legally?" Jordan stood. "Through proper subpoenas, Your Honor." The judge examined the papers, his expression darkening. "This is extremely serious." He fixed Shelton with a piercing stare. "Mr. Shelton, you may wish to consult your criminal defense attorney." A murmur swept through the room. Shelton's hands trembled as he reached for water. Jordan remained standing. "Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to proceed with my closing argument." The judge nodded. Jordan turned to the jury, speaking without notes. This case was never about restaurants. It was about truth, about a powerful man who thought he could bully his way to victory. His voice filled the room. But the law doesn't care about fame or money. It cares about evidence. And the evidence shows one thing clearly: Marcus Shelton is a liar. The jury stared intently as Jordan methodically recapped every exposed lie. When he finished, even the court stenographer had stopped typing to listen. The prosecution's weak rebuttal lasted only minutes before Judge Mitchell sent the jury to deliberate. The verdict would come soon, but everyone already knew the outcome. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. When the bailiff announced they had reached a verdict, the courtroom filled so quickly that security turned people away. Michael Jordan sat perfectly still at the defense table, his hands folded on the wooden surface. Marcus Shelton kept wiping his palms on his pants legs, his expensive suit now wrinkled beyond repair. The jury foreman stood as Judge Mitchell asked for their decision. "We, the jury, find in favor of the defendant on all counts," the foreman declared. The room exploded in noise, cheers, gasps, reporters scrambling for the exits. Jordan simply nodded once, his face unreadable. But Judge Mitchell wasn't finished. He motioned for federal agents waiting by the door. "Mr. Shelton, you're under arrest for perjury, evidence tampering, and conspiracy to commit fraud." The handcuffs clicked shut around Shelton's wrists as cameras flashed. Jordan didn't smile as his adversary was led away. He had known this outcome since the first day. Outside the courthouse, Michael Jordan faced a sea of reporters. For the first time in months, he stopped to speak. This was never about money, he told the microphones. It was about the small business owners who can't fight back against these tactics. He announced the Jordan Justice Initiative, a $100 million fund to help entrepreneurs battle frivolous lawsuits. When asked why he represented himself, Jordan finally smiled. Sometimes you have to take the last shot yourself. The next morning, Wilson Food stock plummeted 80% before trading was halted. By noon, federal agents raided their headquarters. Meanwhile, Flight 23 restaurants saw record crowds, with wait times stretching hours. At his Chicago flagship location, Jordan hosted the former Wilson Foods employees who had testified, now all unemployed. "We're expanding," he told them. "I need people who understand integrity." 6 months later, Jordan sat in a different courtroom, this time accepting an honorary law degree from Harvard. The dean called his legal victory the most significant corporate ethics case of the decade. That afternoon, he visited the newly opened Jordan Legal Center in Chicago's South Side, where law students provided free counsel to small businesses. His old courtroom opponent, Judge Mitchell, now taught there part-time. "Never thought I'd be learning from you," the judge admitted. Jordan just chuckled. Back at his office, a package arrived containing Shelton's sentencing memo. 20 years in federal prison. Jordan set aside unopened. On his desk lay blueprints for 30 new Flight 23 locations and a handwritten note from a young entrepreneur. "Because of you, I didn't give up." Jordan framed it next to his 6 championship trophies. Some victories, after all, mattered more than rings. The morning after Shelton's sentencing, Jordan arrived at his Charlotte office to find a line of small business owners stretching around the block. A young woman holding bakery blueprints stepped forward first. "Mr. Jordan, a food conglomerate is trying to steal my recipes." Jordan ushered her inside. For 8 straight hours, he personally reviewed cases with his legal team, assigning attorneys to each one. Meanwhile, news broke that Congress had drafted the Jordan Act, legislation imposing harsh penalties for fraudulent corporate lawsuits. That evening, as Jordan finally left the office, his assistant handed him a voicemail transcript. The president wanted to discuss a White House advisory position on business ethics. Jordan folded the paper neatly into his pocket. Some games required bigger courts. Jordan was reviewing witness statements for an upcoming Jordan Justice Initiative case when his receptionist buzzed in. "Sir, Rebecca Shelton is here to see you." Marcus Shelton's daughter stood trembling in the waiting area. "I want to help," she blurted out, clutching a hard drive. "My father's records on 12 other companies he destroyed." Jordan studied the young woman. Her father's eyes, but none of his cruelty. He led her to a conference room where a forensic team immediately began analyzing the files. "Why come forward now?" Jordan asked. Rebecca opened her phone to show a Flight 23 job application. "Your cashier gave me a free meal when I couldn't pay last week. Said it was company policy for people in need." Her voice broke. "My father would have had that worker fired." Jordan slid a tissue box across the table. Everyone deserved a second chance, even a Shelton. The basketball bounced crisply as Jordan walked onto an outdoor court near his childhood home. A group of teenagers froze mid-game. "Holy MJ!" He took the ball from the closest kid and sank an effortless jumper. Swish. For an hour, he played with the starstruck teens, offering quiet pointers between plays. As dusk fell, one brave boy asked, "Why'd you stop playing, sir?" Jordan caught the ball and smiled. "Same reason I passed a her in '97. Some things are more important than scoring." His phone buzzed. The White House calling again. Jordan tossed the ball back. "Next game, I'm taking you left." Driving away, he glanced at the presidential number flashing on his screen, then out at the kids already practicing their new moves. The assist, he thought, might be his greatest shot yet. The presidential call went straight to voicemail again. Jordan stared at his phone as his private jet climbed over Charlotte. His lawyer Maria Gonzalez raised an eyebrow. "That's the 3rd time you've avoided the president." Jordan sipped water. "I don't do ceremonial roles." The plane hit turbulence as Maria handed him a folder. "Then you'll love this. The Justice Department wants you to consult on their new corporate fraud task force. No speeches, just nailing bad guys." Jordan opened a file to find photos of executives from the companies Rebecca had exposed. He recognized one, the man who'd bankrupted his childhood friend's auto shop. The jet leveled out at cruising altitude as Jordan pulled out a legal pad. Some invitations were worth accepting. Jordan stood before 30 Justice Department attorneys in a secure conference room. "Rule 1, he said, writing on a whiteboard. "They always get greedy." He circled a date on a timeline. Shelton filed his lawsuit exactly 6 days after Flight 23's IPO plans leaked. The lawyer scribbled notes as Jordan walked them through his investigative process. You find the pressure point. For Shelton, it was Prague. A young prosecutor raised her hand. "How do you know when to go for the knockout?" Jordan smiled. "Same as basketball, when you smell blood in the water." He tossed her a flash drive. "That's how I found Shelton's offshore accounts." "Your turn." As the attorneys huddled over laptops, Jordan slipped out. Real teaching happened in the field. Rebecca Shelton stood awkwardly in Flight 23's test kitchen, wearing an employee apron. "I still don't understand why you hired me," she said as Jordan inspected a new menu item. He didn't look up. "Your father's victims deserve restitution. Nobody knows his schemes better than you." A cook handed Jordan a sample plate. He took one bite before pushing it toward Rebecca. "Too salty. Fix it." As she adjusted the seasoning, Jordan's phone buzzed with an alert. His task force had just indicted 3 more executives. Rebecca timidly slid the improved dish back. Jordan tasted it and nodded. "Better." For the first time since the trial, Rebecca smiled. The kitchen staff erupted in cheers. Jordan allowed himself a small grin. Everyone had potential, even if it took tough coaching to uncover it. The Jordan Justice Initiative's anniversary gala filled Chicago's Field Museum with laughter and clinking glasses. Former plaintiffs, now thriving business owners, clustered around displays of courtroom evidence that had saved their companies. Jordan stood apart, watching a young girl press her nose against a glass case containing Shelton's forged documents. "Daddy says you beat the bad man," she whispered. Jordan crouched to her eye level. "We all did together." Nearby, Rebecca Shelton presented a check to the family of the fired Wilson Foods whistleblower. Cameras flashed as Jordan slipped out through a service exit. In the quiet hallway, his phone lit up a notification. SECV, Kensington Court motion to dismiss denied. He allowed himself one quiet fist pump before returning to the light and noise. Some victories needed no audience to cover it. The basketball arced perfectly toward the hoop as the final buzzer sounded in the empty gym. Swish. Jordan caught the ball and turned to face the camera one last time. 52 points, he said to his documentary crew. Not bad for an old lawyer. As they packed up, he lingered at center court, spinning the ball absently. The same motion that had calmed him before championship free throws now steadied him for different battles. Outside, a car waited to take him to the airport. Another corporate fraud case, another underdog to defend. He tossed the ball to a wide-eyed janitor. "Keep practicing." Jordan winked. The man caught it like a treasure as Jordan disappeared into Chicago night, his shadow stretching long across the hardwood. The game, after all, was never just a game. Tag someone who needs to hear the story. The next Michael Jordan could be you.